first of all, I think it's very important that we say what this is about. This bill is about creating a framework through which this country can confront a climate crisis that is threatening not only livelihoods in Ireland, but livelihoods right across the globe. And this, for the first time, is putting in a clear, transparent, accountable method where we can identify what needs to be done and make ministers and sectors accountable for progressing that. It's not going to be easy. Many people were critical of the climate action plan that I introduced that envisaged 1 million cars on the road by 2030, 500,000 homes retrofitted, and so on. Many ambitious 12 gigawatts of renewable energy. But the reality is we need to do more, and this bill enshrines doing more. And most of the House supports the target that's been set. Indeed, most of the opposition is looking for even higher targets than has been set in this bill. That's the background. And it is disheartening to listen to this debate. And so far, there hasn't been any member who's addressed how we're going to achieve the targets that we all know need to be reached. And it is interesting to hear that people outside of this House, whether they represent the agricultural sector or any other sector, recognise that this change needs to be made. Come in here and you'd think you are listening in a different world from those that's inhabited by everyone outside the community. And I think the wider community is being poorly represented by those who say not an inch. We will attack this in every way. We will see the back of every Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil or Green TD who backs this bill, because they're sticking their heads in the ground. They're ensuring that the future for their communities will be worse because we do not start to address these challenges. That's what they are doing. But they're doing it in these veiled threats against others. That there will be a day of reckoning. Now, I fully support the idea of a just transition. But when you read the amendments, we have 11 different versions put forward by members of the opposition as to what they want. And when you read into the detail of what is being sought, you can see how difficult it would be for the minister to accept these. They want to maintain social consensus throughout this. That's going to be very difficult. These are difficult changes that will be challenging. And at some point we have to act. We can't just wait for another discussion and another round of hoping that we'll find social consensus. They want that those who were affected maintain their current income in all circumstances. The reality is that we have been using our planet profligately, and we can't compensate everyone. The taxpayer's pocket isn't deep enough to ensure that everyone is left no worse off than they were before. This is a transition to a life and a challenging change that we need to make as a community together. And the importance of this bill is it creates a framework for doing that together. But the definitions of justice offered by the opposition include things like that they be morally fair, that this climate bill reduce inequalities, that it protects people against financial hardship. The climate bill can't do all those things. They're the task of government and this Oireachtas, seeking to manage the many challenges that we face, be they economic challenges, social challenges, or indeed, yes, climate challenges. But these are not things that you can write into a bill and make a minister accountable and say, well, we will not move an inch until all of these things are met. That's simply not realistic politics. And I think many of those who are articulating this know that that's not realistic politics, but they want to create a heads I win, tails you lose situation with the people who are trying in an honest way to confront the global challenge. It reminds me of the late Brian Lenihan, who said when he was asked about fair tax, the only fair tax is the tax that I don't pay. If that's our definition of fairness, we will never have fairness or a just transition. But at the heart of this bill is a just transition, and that's what I find so disappointing, that people aren't talking about the substance of what we need to do. But the heart of this bill, in the very citation of the bill, it says we must approve a plan which will promote climate justice. the very first number of lines. It then goes on to define what climate justice is about and talks about the most vulnerable persons who must be protected. It then goes on to say how the minister must handle this, and he is required that a just transition to a climate-neutral economy maximises employment and supports those who are most vulnerable in the community and those communities that are negatively affected. That's what's at the heart of this bill, and opposition spokesmen are trying to pretend that it's not there. And not only is it at the heart of the bill, but the government has shown its good faith and commitment. We already have a Just Transition Commissioner. We already have put substantial money into just transition measures. We have warmer home schemes that are going to be doubled and indeed trebled in the years ahead. There are many areas, and of course we have to do more. And one of the sectors we could do most in is going to be agriculture, because in the future farmers will be making their money partly from producing food, but also from farming carbon. And those on the benches opposite should be coming up with policy tools that will help us to reward farmers, so that farmers in 10 years' time can have a healthy family farm income. But it's doing farmers no service to just say, we won't have this, we won't have that, we won't have the other. We have to come up with policy tools together that will address this problem. And that's where I find it is disheartening that the tone of this is setting out this is an attack on rural Ireland. This isn't an attack on rural Ireland. The only way rural Ireland will have a prosperous future is by adapting into these changes. I remember when we were dealing with the
Speaker conclude. Is an attack on rural Ireland. Let the Speaker conclude. You know how this works. You've had your 7 minutes. You can have 2 minutes. And let the Speaker conclude.
The final thing I'll say, people talk about this bill being rushed. This bill was produced in its original form in 2019. We had 50 hours in pre-legislative scrutiny when any deputy could have come in and contributed. We had 14 hours in committee stage, and there were none of these items that are now on the agenda did the deputies here now protesting come in and contribute to that debate.
Thank you,
this is a change we need to start addressing.
No, sorry, you can't make a statement like that. A lot of these issues were debated last Wednesday, and I gave 7 hours debating each one of them. So I'm not going to listen to any deputy coming in here and pointing his finger at us and saying that we didn't participate in the debate. That's not true, it's not right, it's not proper, and take it back from the record of the Dáil. You can't go saying something like that.
As a point of order, he needs to take that back. I certainly spent hours discussing this and our amendments, and every one of our amendments were refused. And Deputy Bruton better wake up and smell the grass grow, because he's been representing his party, the rich farmers, all his life.
Our next speaker's Deputy Party
all his life. And this is what he wants to do here today, is represent the wealthy and the rich and the ordinary person stood alive on the ground. How dare he say the like of it?
We're not.
And if back on the committee, and go back to his party and back to his countryside where he represents rich farmers all his life.
Deputies to resume their seats.
Sorry, point of order, point of order.
There's no point of order.
No, sorry, we put in 90 amendments, and it's not right to just completely dismiss them. We're supposed to be in a democratic parliament where everyone's respected. That is unbelievable arrogance. That's what it is.
Deputy, I would ask you to resume your seat. This is not a point.
Disconnect from ordinary people.
I'd ask you to resume your seat. This is a...
Kyle, as leader of the group, look, please, I'd ask Deputy Bruton to withdraw his allegation. In actual fact, I said it earlier, we weren't even notified of the committee with 90 amendments on, but the journalists rang us. We weren't notified. Now,
I'm quite happy to recognise that Dennis Naughton stayed throughout the whole debate, that Michael Healy-Rae was there throughout the debate, but none of the other deputies who are here protesting loudly...
Excuse me, you're incorrect. I was there at the debate. 3 deputies attended. I was at the debate. How dare he correct the record of the Dáil? That man has no clue what he's on about.
Deputies resume their seats.
No, he can't. The point of order, he has misled the Dáil. I was here last Thursday, and I spoke in the amendment. I spoke in the amendment all day.
Deputy McGrath, you said...
About held in private, Chairman.
Yes.
Will you just let Deputy McGrath...
That was very unfair of him to say that we weren't at the committee meetings. Most of the committee meetings were held in private.
Deputy Bruton has misled the Dáil. I spoke on the amendments on Thursday, and it's for as long as the debate continued.
This isn't a cattle mark for people to stand up and shout.
Well, no need at all. He's been shouting lies. He's misled it all.
You will resume your seat.
No, will
you resume your seat.
He needs to correct the record.
Ask Deputy Bruton to correct the record.
You ask him to correct the record,
attended committee.
I can't see what the point of order is. You're shouting over
No, it's clarification. Three of our deputies, Cal Noel, Michael Collins and Michael Healy, attended.
When the other two deputies resumed their seats, we'll listen to Deputy McGrath for a second.
Three of our nominated TDs attended. When we found out through a journalist that the meeting was taking place with 90 amendments into, that's what we weren't even told was on. Now, I don't know where the blame lies there. The Secretary General was, the clerk was very nice to us about it, but it happened. So I'm asking Deputy Bruton, 3 TDs attended and dealt with all our amendments to please correct the record of what he stated. Please.
Okay, sorry, just 1 second now. The committee schedule, and we all know this, is available for all members, whether you sit in the committee or not. It's available to every single person, so I don't accept that as a point of order. We're going to move on to our speaking schedule.
He has to withdraw what he said.
The order is, I attended one of the days of the meetings. He says we never attended, only Michael Healy-Rae and Deputy Healy-Rae was there too. I attended myself on the Thursday, and Deputy Carol Nolan did. And he needs to correct the record of the Dáil. He may not have been in attendance, I don't know, but I won't speak on his behalf. I'll speak on my own behalf. How shameful
we want this corrected, Cathaoirleach. It's very reasonable what we're asking. I attended last Tuesday.
Do you wish to redact any part of your contribution?
No, I have no problem in acknowledging that some people turned up, but many of people who are here loud in their
you're saying we
did not turn up.
Can you be honest and say you made a mistake and move on?
And many of the motions, when we could have gone through them line by line and discussed them in a calm environment, which the committee provided for, they were not moved to discuss in that way. So we weren't able to tease out the arguments that lay behind them. And that is the problem we've had. We didn't have that at pre-legislative scrutiny. We didn't have it in the committee rooms. And it is extremely difficult for government to tease out
Deputy Collins, resume your seat.
He made a statement here today and he has the decency to withdraw.
Deputy is our next contributor, and I'd ask him else to move.
Minister. One matter there. If a meeting is held in private, if you're not a committee member, you can't attend it. And most of the committee meetings were held in private. And go back in the records. That's the truth of what happened. Well, I had a fierce interest in this, but I wasn't a member of the committee, and most of the meetings were held in private, and as such thing, I couldn't attend.
Deputy I don't like to contradict you, but that isn't true, because last week I attended a private session of a committee that I'm not on, and it's regular and common practice here.